Hello and welcome to another episode of Square State Sandlot. I am your host, Bill Montoya, and I have Raph joining me again. It's great to have you back, Raph. I know it's been a little bit since we last talked. Your Rays, you're wearing the right uniform tonight, and they are playing very well. A lot of good baseball coming from them. But my A's, in contrast, still don't have double-digit wins, so I guess you could say we're kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum there. I believe you guys have the best record in baseball, both National League and American League, and we have the worst. So franchises on the opposite side there. But I guess before we get into the baseball talk, which we will have a ton of that today, I do want to invite you guys to follow us on all of our socials. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We also are on YouTube, which that's where you can see this. You can also follow us on any of the podcast platforms of choice. Just search us by our name. On Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I believe our handle is at SQ State Sandlot. So that's where you can reach us all. Raph, I don't know if you want to post any of your socials there.
I'm okay right now.
Okay. Raph wants to stay the angry Rays Rockies guy. So anyway, we will talk about my Warriors losing 4-2 to the Lakers in that series. Very sad. And then we'll get into the baseball talk, like I said, and then we'll get into the NFL schedule release. As you can tell, Kyle's not here tonight to talk about his Pirates, his Steelers, or his Penguins. I don't know. I know they're making some off-season plans right now, but anyway, next time we get him on, we'll talk about all of his teams. And with that being said, we'll jump right into the Warriors. Raph, what did you think about that series? I know you were bummed to see the Warriors lose, just as much as I was.
Oh, probably not as much as you. I was a little disappointed in that Corgi.
Yeah.
He misled us a little bit, but
went 4-0, couldn't get the last. Oh, you went 5-0.
Yeah. But I don't know, kind of like what Kerr said. Like all season, barely squeaked into the playoffs and stuff. So for what the season was, I guess not a total loss.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an inconsistent season, and it seemed like the whole time you're just trying to get into the playoffs. It wasn't necessarily like a foregone conclusion that we were going to make the playoffs. Even coming into the last couple weeks of the season, we were still fighting for playoff seeding. So obviously I'm disappointed. I thought they would beat the Lakers and then ultimately probably lose to Denver, although I think I picked them in our playoff brackets. I think I picked them going to the finals. Thought they would get past the Lakers for sure. And I'm not going to get into a lot of the stuff that was going on. It seemed very interesting, like especially after game one, where it was a close game. Warriors come back and blow out the Lakers. And after that, the next two games, it seemed like there was a lot of fouls going against the Warriors just for playing defense. And I don't want to blame the fouls as the reason they lost. They just felt like all the fouls that they were calling, a lot of them were, Warriors playing defense. And if you can't play defense, then it's going to be tough to stay competitive in games. So it felt like that was the only way that the Lakers were going to win this series is at the foul line. And that kind of was the case for most of that series. But the main contributing factor for the reason that they lost, especially in Game 5 and Game 6, or sorry, not Game 5, Game 6, was just that Splash Brothers couldn't make a shot. I mean, Steph was playing great basketball, being a great distributor, but I think the Game 4 through 6, he shot under 30% from three. Klay Thompson, same thing. And Wiggins had a great Game 5. A lot of the cast had a great Game 5, especially with, Steph had, I think, 14 assists in that game. So obviously there's got to be someone at the other end of those passes making shots or they wouldn't be assists. So, but ultimately it came down to Steph and Clay going cold shooting and not getting a ton of contributions from everyone else. Especially that game 6. I mean, they couldn't hit a shot to save their lives. They were down 20 with, I don't know, felt like 10 minutes left in the third quarter and couldn't claw their way back from that. So just a rough outing. Obviously, I wish it would have ended a lot different. I thought for sure they would at least take it to Game 7. And if they got to Game 7, I really thought that they would win that series, but just didn't shoot well enough to do that. So my question for you, Raph, do you think they'll blow it up? There's already been talks about potentially extending both Clay and Draymond, which I know Kyle really wants Draymond out the door, but I feel like, well, just give me your opinion. Do you think that those three still have enough in the tank to carry the Warriors to future playoff success, or do you think this is the end of the road for them?
There probably needs to be some mix-up. Like, you need to change things up. I don't think that all three will be back like that.
I know Clay, they said he would probably be coming back on an extension, but at a much lower number than his $42 million I think he has on last year of his deal. Draymond, I think he would have to come back at a much lower deal as well for it to make sense, especially if they want help. I was really surprised by Steve Kerr especially in the Lakers series. He basically went away from Jonathan Kuminga, and even in the previous series, he kind of went away from Jonathan Kuminga completely, which towards the end of the season, I mean, he was averaging 20 points a game and getting quite a few rebounds, steals, looked like a player on the rise. And I don't know what he did to piss off Steve Kerr, but it was quite apparent that something happened between the end of the season and into the playoffs because Kuminga couldn't sniff any minutes except for in garbage time. Moses Moody had a great series against the Lakers. So I think he could be a building block. Kuminga should be a building block. So you have some of those guys that are, younger guys that are coming up. Jordan Poole went absolutely missing in that entire series. I don't know what happened to him, but I mean, they just gave him that monster contract extension, and in the playoffs when it counted most, I mean, you couldn't even find him. I mean, he came in for, can't remember what game it was. I think it was game 4 that they lost. Jordan Poole came in for approximately 10 minutes, had like 4 shots, none of them went in, and then he had 2 turnovers, and he was like minus 10 in those 10 minutes. So he immediately went to the bench and basically didn't get back in the rotation after that just because Steve Kerr didn't feel like he could trust him to put him in for extended minutes. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place with the core that they have are aging veterans, and they have the young guys, but they don't apparently trust the young guys enough to play significant minutes in games that count. So I don't know what they need to do. I really think that they can still win with Clay, Steph, and Draymond. I don't know if they'll – it seems most likely to me that if one of them's going to go, it's going to be Draymond. And that makes sense because they don't get a ton of offense out of him. Obviously, he's a great defender. But the way that he was getting fouls called against him when he was guarding Anthony Davis, I mean, he may as well not have been on the court because it would be like trip down the court, foul on Draymond, next trip down the court, foul on Draymond. Now he's got to go sit for the next 10 minutes. Then he comes back out and immediately gets another foul called on him. So I don't know. I mean, it feels like Davis was playing very physical basketball, which is fine. But if the defenders can't be physical to match him and they're going to get fouls called on them for banging up against him while he's trying to run over them, like, I don't know how you defend that. So it was just a frustrating series, and I think that's part of the thing going forward is, yeah, you have Looney, but, like, he got sick in game 3, I think, and didn't play significant minutes, and then you could tell he was just getting gassed being on the court the entire time, especially when he had to guard AD. So I don't know. I feel like they still could be competitive, but I don't know what they're going to do going forward. And a major question mark to this whole scenario is Bob Myers, their GM. He's no longer under contract, so if they don't get an extension done with him, I mean, he's built up some amazing relationships. A lot of these players and coaching staff over the last 8 years. I think he's been the GM, and so if they can't bring him back, I know any other team would be happy to have him, and I'm sure that's his leverage in saying, like, I want to bet, but it's got to make sense for me. So if he's gone, I think they may look at starting to blow. Oh, we'll see. I feel like Bob Myers is going to be the best guy to go to Draymond and Clay and say, hey, look, we want you to be Warriors for life, but it also has to make sense. Like, this team is not going to win as it's currently constructed a championship. So if you guys want us to bring in another player to help you guys out, you can't be getting paid $40 million each or whatever their deals are. So, and like I said, he's got that relationship equity built up with all these guys, so he's going to be the best guy to go to them and present that, rather than saying, you know, the owner comes up to him and says, hey guys, I don't want to pay you this much because then payroll or then I'm going to have to pay this much in luxury tax. So coming from Bob Myers, I feel like it's just a much better situation. But we can move on from my Warriors and the disappointing end to the 2023 playoffs, but I think they'll be back next year, but I'm excited to see what they do in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that. In other depressing news, we have my A's have announced a new site for a stadium without renderings, architecture, design, anything like that. This is on the Tropicana site. So it is a planned 30,000 seat stadium, and based on the amount of attendance, they said they're projecting 2.5 million fans to fill up this stadium in its inception, and that is over 30,000 people in the seats for every single game. So I'm assuming they're planning on maybe some spring training games to be held there, and also some playoff games for them to hit that number of expected fans. Because, well, I'll get into it in a little bit, why I don't think that's even closely remote to possible. But anyway, so the things that kind of make me nervous about this is, one, the Tropicana has already informed the employees that it's likely to be shutting down. So I don't feel like Tropicana would tell their employees that if they didn't think it was at least likely that it was going to happen. There's still plenty of hurdles left. I mean, this is kind of a 11th hour situation that the A's are presenting this proposal to the voters in Las Vegas, Nevada. So they don't have a ton of time to read through this proposition and figure out if they want to support it or not. So I think there's only 3 weeks left in their meetings before they call it for the year. So they're going to be rushed just trying to decide if this is a good thing for the state of Nevada or not. And the reason why I would say it's still not, 100% set in stone is because they're asking for $400 million in public funds from the state of Nevada, which, I mean, they gave the Raiders $750 million. So the reason why I think it's not, 100% set in stone is just because they're asking for $400 million in public subsidies from the state of Nevada, which they already gave $750 million to the Raiders. So it seems less likely that that's going to happen. But the fact that we haven't seen any renderings or anything like that is also part of the reason that I'm like, I still don't feel like it's set in stone. And quite honestly, I mean, we've heard this song and dance from the Fisher-owned A's for, the last 15 years? I think they've announced 7 stadium sites, and obviously they haven't built on any of them. So, and I mean, even as recent as 2 weeks ago, they announced a different Las Vegas site. So I don't know. It just feels like a clown show that owns my favorite baseball team, and it's quite sad. But I guess we'll see what happens. Some of the things that also are puzzling to me is the things that they were asking for in Oakland that were quote unquote must-haves. They're not part of this deal in Las Vegas. And some of that is Fisher won't own the stadium. He'll be leasing it from a casino, which also seems like kind of a conflict of interest where you don't want a sports book essentially owning a professional team, which they won't own the team, but they will own the site that it's played on. There's no surrounding.
Seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, it all seems like a bad idea, quite honestly. And I'll get into that more in just a minute. But there's also no surrounding entertainment, housing, commerce that's owned by the team. Obviously, there's all that stuff, but it's all part of the Strip, not owned by the A's, all owned by casino owners and all that. So they're not going to be bringing in any extra money from the surrounding venues or anything like that. And this was part of what they said was absolutely mandatory for them to field a competitive team and have a competitive payroll. So if they don't have those things, how are they going to pay for an improved roster? Because quite honestly, their financials are not going to get better just by moving to Las Vegas. Obviously, they won't be paying a lease to Oakland, Alameda County, but it sounds like they'll be paying a lease to the casino owner where they're getting land from. And obviously, they're just paying $1 for the property that's basically just been gifted to them, but they still have to pay a lease based on their profits to the stadium owners. So it's just like really a half-baked plan to me, quite honestly. And the fact that there's people saying it's going to bring in an extra 400,000 visitors to Las Vegas. No one has numbers that back that up. They said the same thing about the Raiders moving to Vegas, which I think you could probably quantify maybe just by saying, well, there's this many people from out of town coming to watch their team play in Allegiant Stadium. But like, who's to say they weren't going to come anyway on that weekend? But now it's just an added incentive that their team's playing that weekend. Or maybe they weren't going to come that weekend, they were going to come a different weekend instead. But now, since their team's going to be there, they're coming now. So there's not an easy way to quantify how many people are coming because of this. But the point I made on Twitter was there's not going to be very many visiting team fans that are coming Monday through Wednesday to watch a 3-game set in Las Vegas, especially in the middle of summer. Like, I don't know. What do you think about this whole stadium nonsense that they've just announced a binding agreement to?
The NFL is such a bigger market. Some of those numbers might actually make sense with extra people, but to go to Vegas to watch baseball, which a lot of people think is the most boring thing you can do next to golf or watching golf, unless the stadium's inside, are they going to have air conditioning in the summer?
Well, that's the thing. Said it's partially, what did they say? Partially covered or something like that. So it doesn't even sound like it's going to be a dome. It'll be retractable roof, maybe. I can't remember exactly what they said, but I think they said partially covered. So I'm sure it'll be somewhat cooled, but it's going to be kind of like LA, the SoFi Stadium, where they have like the openings on both sides so airflow can go through naturally. I don't know. It really seems like none of this makes sense, honestly. But maybe it works for them. I don't know. It was interesting for me because I posted a couple things on Twitter today about how this seemed like a bad idea for not only the A's, seemed like a bad idea for the people in Vegas that were going to be paying $400 million in public subsidies to get this billionaire a new stadium located closely to the Strip. But several of them were saying, things would change just because you can't compare investing in Oakland to investing in Vegas, which, okay, I feel like if you look at the population of the Bay Area, there's like almost 8 million people that live in that area. Okay, maybe let's say 2/3 of them are Giants fans and the other third are Ace fans. That's probably not an accurate breakdown. I would guess it's probably closer to 50-50. But anyway, if you look at the Las Vegas and surrounding area, Las Vegas metropolitan area, it's like 2.2 million people. So you're moving to roughly a 1/3 as populated area, and most of the people that live there probably aren't from Las Vegas, probably have their own team that they already follow if they're interested in baseball. So maybe they'll go when their favorite team comes to play in that stadium. But to your point, NFL is a much bigger draw. You're only having to fill the stadium for either 8 or 9 games based on the year. Every other year you have 8. Every other year you have 9 games. So you're only asking them to fill the stadium max 9 times a year. In baseball, you're going to be asking them to fill it 81 times a year when there's residencies, there's the Strip, there's, all these other things that you can do while visiting Vegas. And the locals, I know several people that live in Las Vegas. If they're not in their 20s, maybe some of them in their 30s, they're not going to the Strip for anything. Like, you don't get Las Vegas locals going to the Strip. That's the one place they want to avoid because it's just a giant cluster. Just maximum congestion, can't get around anywhere. I don't know any of the locals that go to the Strip with any regularity. So asking locals to go to 81 games, I just don't feel like that's a realistic proposition. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to post this clip on Twitter. Las Vegas locals, please let me know how many games you would plan on attending of the 81. We'll put a poll out there as well. So if you're planning on going from 0 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60, and then 61 to all 81, and we'll see what kind of results we get from that. So we'll post this clip. We'll post the poll to go along with it, and Las Vegas locals, chirp in. Let us know how many you would plan on actually going to if the ballpark is located where they're planning it on Tropicana or in the Tropicana. I don't know. I just feel like it's not going to be that many, but we'll see. But moving along let's talk about your Rays. I know you're excited to talk about them.
Sorry, I was trying to do some math, but I was just thinking about all right, 3 million A's fans, in the Bay Area won't go to the game. But then you have 2 million Las Vegas people. Then I was trying to figure out 30 MLB teams, divided by 30,000. And are there 30,000 of each team worth of fans there to fill up that stadium?
No. I love your deductive reasoning there. I really feel like it's going to be, and I put this out there. I said, I don't think that if they were to move, I'm not going to say they're going to have empty stadiums like there is right now in Oakland, but you can't just say what's going on in Oakland right now is because the fans in Oakland aren't there. It's because over the last, I think John Fisher's been the lead owner of that team for 16 years, something like that. Every single year, it seems like we're just developing prospects for other teams. Anytime our guys get to the point where they're contributing, but they're running out of team control, we ship them off to another team. Our largest contract ever as an organization, still to this day, is 6 years, $66 million. That was given to Eric Chavez. I think it was back in 2002, 2006, somewhere in that range. It's 2023. There's teams out there that are paying, what was my contract's deal, like $420 million over 10 years or something like that? Like, I don't know. We can't be competitive, and that's the thing. All the fans that are saying, well, once they get to Las Vegas, they'll start spending. It's like, no. Here's all the things that they said had to happen for them to be able to spend. None of these things are happening. If he's not selling the team, they're not going to spend. They're not going to all of a sudden spend. The only way they're going to spend is to keep their revenue sharing. To say, look, we're putting the money that we're getting from all these other owners, we're putting it into our roster. That's the only way he's going to spend anything more than what he minimally has to. So, I don't know. Let's talk about your Rays, because every time we just mention the A's, it just gets my blood boiling, because I know soon enough they're probably going to be drawing 10 to 15,000 people a night on average on the Las Vegas Strip. So it's fine. Go on. Let's have some happy news in our podcast 30 minutes in.
Well, I mean, the Rays are like 5-5 in their last 10, which isn't the greatest, but and I mean, their defense, they allowed the Yankees to score quite a bit on them. But as a whole, the team still seems to be doing good. It's kind of hard to keep track of two teams, and I just get so many notifications about who's going on the IL and who's coming off, but
yeah, it gets overwhelming, especially when you have so for example, I have The Athletic, and then I have MLB, and it's constantly shooting me messages about all my teams on The Athletic, and then MLB's also doing kind of the same thing with a specific news. So it's like, man, you should get too many of these, but at least your Rays are giving you something to look forward to. I mean, they're currently, like I said, best record in baseball as far as I can tell. 31 wins, 11 losses.
They're definitely up there. Probably
Yeah, they have
5 games
more
ahead of
wins.
everybody.
Yep.
So
that's good. I mean, even 5-5 in your last 10 games, I mean, that's treading water, like we've talked about. If you can get a good stretch where you're, 10, 15 games above 500, and then you just tread water the rest of the way, I mean, you're still going to end with a really good record at the end of the season. So 5-5,
yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, and they've got a good lead going as far as wins, and there's nothing wrong with trying to take it a little bit easier and stay healthy. No reason to go out there and throw your arms out and stuff. So
yeah, well, I mean, you did lose one of your starters for 60 days, right? Rasmussen or something like that. I think he just got moved to the 60-day DL, if I remember right. So, but it seems like you guys have 400 starters that you could just bring in at the drop of a hat. So, I wish we had half.
The bullpen is still good.
Yeah, but that's the only concern I would have is, I mean, if you guys are burning through the bullpen regularly, that's what happened. Like the A's. I mean, even if we had a great bullpen, as much as we've had to use them because starters can't go more than 5-6 innings. I mean, it's not a great recipe for a good end of the season if you're burning through the bullpen. So, like I said, you guys have had really good pitching. You hit the shit out of the ball. So, all of that's encouraging. You are in probably the toughest division in all of baseball. So, that's going to make it interesting as we get down the stretch. I mean, Yankees are 5 games above 500, and they're 7.5 games back of you guys in the lead. Orioles are playing great baseball. I mean, the only team in your division that's not playing great is the Red Sox. I mean, they still have above 500. Yeah, I mean, and so we'll talk about Kyle's Pirates here in a little bit. I think the main issue that they've had after getting off to that really hot start is they've had to start playing the AL East. I mean, Orioles beat the crap out of them. You guys beat the crap out of them. Blue Jays beat the crap out of them. So I feel like the Pirates are in just a rough stretch in the schedule. So it's caused a lot of the fans to lose enthusiasm that they had built up. But no, I think the fact that you guys are 4.5 games ahead of everyone else in your division doesn't sound like a lot, but as well as everyone else is playing, like, it's a good little stretch. And I feel like your division may even have like all three of the wild cards if it continues this way, just because.
Oh yeah, it definitely seems like that. Like if it wasn't for the divisions, it'd almost be like it's just the AL East is going, nobody else.
Yeah.
But.
And it's not likely to happen just because everyone in your division would have to basically keep this pace up, and that's not likely. I mean, with injuries and everything. But if you look at all the other divisions, Twins are the only team in the AL Central with a winning record, and they would be just one win ahead of the Red Sox in your division for fourth place. No, they would. Yeah, if you swapped Guardian or the Twins and the Red Sox, Twins would still be last in your division. And then the AL West, you've got the Rangers. They're the only other team that has, Astros, Angels, they're right around 500. Mariners too, and then my A's are 9-33. We won't talk about that, but like you guys, yeah. I mean, if things ended today, I think you would have all of the wild card spots in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to follow that along as the season progresses. Like I said, you could have injuries like Aaron Judge if he re-injures his hip. That may take the Yankees out of consideration. Blue Jays are just now, it feels like, starting to catch their groove. Orioles, surprisingly, have had, I think, like the fourth, fifth best record in baseball since the second half of the season, if you go back to last year. So it's not a fluke how they're playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. And then how are your Rockies doing? I haven't paid too much attention to the National League.
Well, right now in the last 10, they're 6-4. Like a little bit ago, like if this would have been last week, they were like 8-2 in the last 10. But they're playing a really good stretch right now. Like, solid 500 baseball. Maybe a little bit above it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's it. They're a game and a half behind, star-studded Padres, which aren't playing that great.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's one of the most disappointing teams in all of baseball right now.
They're really only 3 games behind for a wild card spot right now. But there's so many teams playing 500 right now.
I was going to say, that's kind of the reason why I haven't paid much attention to the National League, is just because it feels like all the teams are not playing well. Like, you have the Braves and Dodgers right now that are head and shoulders above the teams in their division, and then everyone else is kind of just log jammed within 5-6 games of each other. So definitely a more, I don't know if it's more competitive or they just don't have as good of teams in the NL. I feel like it's more just AL has top heavy teams where NL is probably more balanced. But crazy. Never thought, and as bad as the Pirates are playing, they're 2-8 in their last 10. They're only 1 game out of the lead for their division. So
yeah, that's good for them though. So,
and like I said, they've gone against Orioles, Blue Jays, and Rays. So that's like 9 of their last, I think, 12, 15, something like that, games that they played those guys. And I think all 3 of the AL East teams swept them, didn't they? I know you guys did. Pretty sure the Blue Jays did, and I'm pretty sure the Orioles did too. They lost like 10 games in a row or something like that before they won a couple recently.
So they just beat the Orioles.
Oh, okay. They beat them.
They lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then they lost like 6 in a row between Blue Jays and the Rays. And yeah.
Trying to look at, here we go. Yeah, they went on a stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row they lost. Then they won 1 against the Rockies, and then they lost 4 more in a row, and then won 1 against the Orioles. So that's a pretty rough stretch. But like I said, they've gone 2-8 in their last 10, and they're still only 1 game out of the division lead. There are some things that are looking positive. They were discussing a contract extension with Mitch Keller, which if you would have told me 2 years ago that he was pitching the way he is now, I never would have believed you. But he looks like a true ace, up and coming. And if you look, Rob Friedman, he's the pitching ninja guy. He does like the overlays of like your 2 best pitches or whatever, just so you can see what the baseballs do from the point where they start to break. Mitch Keller's 2-seam fastball and his slider are absolutely disgusting. If you look at those spreads, they've exact same release angle, ball goes to the exact same spot, and then when the slider starts to break, it breaks like huge, and then the 2-seamer breaks the opposite direction from the exact same arm slot, exact same ball placement. It's just the spin on the baseball. And I mean, you've got literally feet of difference between where those balls end up. It's crazy. So if you have that kind of stuff and you can control it, I mean, you're damn near unhittable. So that stuff's exciting for me. It's a lot like what we had in Mason Miller for the A's, except, of course, anytime the A's have something nice, they either trade them or they get hurt. So, of course, it just kills me because Mason Miller was having a great start to his MLB career, and now it looks like forearm tightness and potential. They've said so far nothing major, but he's also getting a second opinion upcoming in the next couple of days. So that's never a good thing when you have forearm tightness. That I don't want to say almost always leads to Tommy John, but it's usually a good indicator that could be something on the horizon. So let's see, I'm trying to think. Anything else you had to talk about baseball-wise? I know we kind of alluded to the schedule breakdown, the standings breakdown. Any teams you are surprised by so far?
I mean, the Rangers, a little bit there.
Playing very well.
I hope they keep it up, keep the Astros out of the playoffs.
Well, there is that, but like any of the teams in my division, so it's tough for me to say. I hope so. Like, if any of the teams I had to root for in our division, it would be Mariners, and they are playing okay. I mean, lately they've been playing a lot better, 6-4 in their last 10. But I think the team that has surprised me the most in all of baseball has been the Cardinals. Like, they're perennially a powerhouse in the National League, and they have the worst record in all of baseball on the National League side. So them being in the basement has been surprising to me. Same, like I said, with the Padres, that was pretty surprising. And then obviously Pirates being where they are, even with the tough stretch in the last few, I didn't think that they would turn things around so quickly. So, and then, like you said, AL West, the Rangers have been very surprising to me. I think some of their record is padded by them playing the A's in 2 series already. But
there
they
we
also
go. That's
lost.
what it is.
It is. I mean, that's why you guys have an inflated record too. You already played the A's, so got to sweep them, got to sweep the Pirates. I mean, come on. But the Rangers, who did they sign? His name's escaping me. Jake DeGrom. They signed him in the offseason, and he already has been pulled twice for shoulder and forearm tightness. So that's not great to see for them. I mean, every game that he's pitched in so far this year, they've won. So if they lose Jake DeGrom for any extended time, that's going to be bad for their win-loss record, especially when you come up towards the playoffs. You need an ace like that to help carry you through those. So if he's going to be, and there's a lot of rumors flying around about potential Tommy John surgery. So if he has to have that this early in the season, I mean, best you're looking at is probably next year, halfway through the season to get him back. There's talk that if it is potentially Tommy John, they're going to try to rehab it first and then throw him back out there in a couple months. Well, then if things go the way that we've seen a lot of the times going, he'll come back and then it'll get re-aggravated and then he'll end up having surgery. Well, then you've wasted 2 months of rehab where you could have just got it done. So I don't know. That's not great for them. Astros obviously have shipped off a lot of their good players, let some of their better players walk. Justin Verlander, although he's not pitching very well, he's only pitched a couple games, I think, for the Mets. So I don't know. Mets have also been majorly disappointing, especially considering what they've spent on their roster. So a lot of, I mean, it's still very early.
Yeah, too early. But maybe those big paychecks will pay off later in the season. But
yeah, and I'm sure that's what they're hoping for. Back when the A's had any inkling of a hope, I would say that the season doesn't really start until July, because that's typically when the A's start to put things together and go on a decent run, and then they'd carry that through into August and September. But seeing as we're 9-33 and already talking about trading some of the guys that have shown any promise, I'm going to say our season is already over, which is disappointing because I actually took the over in our preseason predictions, and it looks like they may lose the most games ever in the history of baseball at this point. So we'll see what happens.
What did I say for the Rockies? 70 wins?
Yeah, I think we were both talking about A's and Rockies, and yeah, it was right around that 70 mark where we said they would both end up. So Rockies,
I think I still got a chance.
Yeah, you still have a chance. I do not. I mean, it's a lot more likely the A's win in the 40s than the 70s at this point. So it hurts saying that. But anyway, we'll move on if you've got nothing else baseball-wise, and we'll start talking real quickly about the NFL news going on and just break down our schedules if you have your 49ers one ready.
Yeah, we can go.
Okay.
We can do football.
So let's just do quick news and notes around the league. One thing I saw this morning got announced was the NFL is putting a playoff game, and it's still not confirmed if this is technically a paywall or if they're just putting it on a streaming service and making it free on Peacock. But the article I read made it seem like you would have to have an active subscription to Peacock to watch this playoff game. And anyway, NFL signed an agreement with Peacock for $110 million, which is just asinine for one game. But anyway, it sounds like you'll probably have to have not a free version of Peacock, but a paid version to watch this playoff game, which I think it's like $5 a month for Peacock. So I don't think it's necessarily like a huge expenditure, but it seems like they're just inching closer and closer towards the inevitable pay-per-view Super Bowl or something like that coming into fruition, or maybe they put all the games behind Sunday Ticket or something like that, just because all the money in the world isn't enough for the NFL. They gotta just absorb it all. So what are your thoughts on this real quick, and then we'll move on to other news.
Yeah. Well,
would you pay $5 to watch it, essentially?
Probably. I mean, I guess it just depends who's playing, but
I know for sure if it was your Niners, you would, but let's say it's an AFL or AFL.
AFC?
AFC. Going way back in time. But yeah, let's say it was an AFC matchup. Well, I guess that could be pretty juicy too, because then you could be looking at Bills Bengals or Bills Chiefs, Bengals.
I don't know. Like, if it was, like, let me see. Who's got a chance on the AFC?
I'd say it was Jags and Ravens, just because I feel like those are two not exciting teams to watch.
Yeah. Or, like, Ravens and Titans, I wouldn't pay for.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Well, I don't think you're going to have to worry about Titans being in the playoffs, but
like,
so I guess if it's a good matchup and not your team, you would probably pay for it. And if it was your team, you would definitely pay for it. But if it was not so attractive, maybe not.
$5 is not a lot, and it's so easy to cancel right afterwards.
I mean, I was going to say, it's not like you're locked into a contract or something. You could literally cancel it right after the game, and if you want to watch Peacock for the rest of the month, sure. I mean, it's not a big deal. Some people are paying, $100 for Logan Paul fight, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not NFL Sunday ticket money, so.
Yeah. Well, and it's like Amazon Prime.
Yeah, there's already that.
What's that? $15 a month? $18? I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just raised the price, but I pay the yearly and not the monthly. So I don't have my calculator handy, so. I mean, it could be the start. I mean, like NBC already gets, like Sunday night games, so. And that's what Peacock is. So then maybe Fox, and then CBS can start keeping all their games on their streaming app too, and I don't know.
That was just moving on from that, another interesting thing I saw with the schedule release, they said they can obviously flex Thursday night games, which is a nightmare if you ask me. I mean, the fact you can flex any of the games is it's great for the TV consumer, but any people that are planning to go to the games I feel like you should offer refunds if you're going to change the time date of the game. So anyway, outside of that tangent, they also announced that like AFC and NFC are no longer locked into like CBS or Fox. So any game could be on any network. They don't own them anymore. So that'll be interesting. But speaking of the schedule, how many games are you guys on in prime time?
5, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 5, and there's a few teams with like 6.
I think there's only a couple teams with 6, and I'm sure Chiefs is probably one of them. But yeah, so
I counted 5.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, Raiders are as well, which really surprised me because I feel like, well, I'll get into their record here in a minute, but they also put Packers on for like 5, and then the Jets as well. So I think they were kind of hedging their bets in case the trade didn't happen and Aaron Rodgers ended up back on the Packers. But I feel like the Packers are not going to be a very good team this year, so that might be some of those games.
But people are going to want to watch them not be a good team.
But I mean, as much as I enjoyed watching the Broncos lose like 6 games on primetime last year, it was not enjoyable TV to watch. So
that was terrible.
Yeah, it was probably the worst, and I feel like that could be the team this upcoming season that ends up being that same way. But like I said, that deal did get done, so I think we all kind of knew it was happening before he even announced that was his intentions, and then I really feel like the Jets gave up too much. Panthers got a lot, but if the Jets can win a Super Bowl, it'll be worth it for them. I just don't feel like they're there yet. But anyway, we'll go into the schedule now. Do you want to do your 49ers first, or do you want me to go first with the Raiders?
Yeah, let's do a little first. Like,
you guys start against Pittsburgh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. We opened up against Pittsburgh, and I mean they played pretty decent last year. But with our question at quarterback, like I don't know, it's gonna be Lance, Purdy, Darnold. Like it just makes me a little bit nervous, just because they're always in it.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's definitely a tough team to gauge just because I feel like no matter what they do in the offseason, it tends to work out. But who's your, I guess if you had to put some odds on it, who's your favorite to start the season for your 49ers? At quarterback, I should say.
Yeah. I really think it's going to be Lance starting. Like Purdy might be ready, but I imagine they'd want him to be 110%, and then they need to answer the Lance question.
For sure.
So
he has my support. He was at an A's game over the weekend, and he was wearing an A's. So I'm all in on Trey Lance. But anyway, game 2, who you guys got?
We got the Rams in LA.
I need you to give me a win or a loss for the Steelers game.
Oh man!
And let's say Trey Lance is starting.
I'm gonna go with the loss.
Are you guys at home for that game 1?
No, we're in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
For game 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say usually if it's toss up, I just lean home team, but
like I don't know. Like if this was after the preseason and maybe we saw some little glimpses, I'd have a different answer. But given how Lance started last year, I imagine it might be the same. I'd hope not, but
well, you should always preface this with it's the way too early predictions. I mean, there's still a good chance. Obviously, you could have some injuries. You could still have some additions to. None of the major veterans are wanting to sign before training camp, so just because they don't want to go through all that stuff. So there's still a really good chance that you guys make some additions either through free agency, trades, things like that. So as of right now, we're just making predictions based off what's on the roster currently, and obviously we don't know how players are going to progress, anything like that. So you got them at 0-1 to start. Then you guys play.
Then we go to LA, which is our second home, and we'll beat them. Then we travel to New York for the Giants. Thursday night game. I say we win that too because they're way overrated, and they showed that in the playoffs when they got kicked out. Then we'll go to Arizona, beat them. Then we go to Dallas for a Sunday night game. We'll have Purdy back by then, so we'll win. Then we travel to Cleveland, which I think we could definitely win. Monday night in Minnesota. That's a little iffy, but you know, it's prime time, right? Cousins doesn't do too good on that.
He does not.
Then week 8, we travel to Cincinnati, which I would probably say we'll mark that as a loss just because we're not going to win everything. But you know,
can't. Who says you can't?
No. I don't want to be like the Patriots and go undefeated in the regular season and then lose. I'd rather lose a few games in the regular season and win the Super Bowl.
You guys have a week 9 bye. That's amazing.
Yeah, right there in the middle. Yeah, that's a good spot. Jacksonville was pretty hot last year. It'll be a tough one. It'll be super hot down there and stuff, but for those California boys. But we'll win. Tampa is nothing, so they'll lose. I mean, they'll lose to the 49ers. But Then on Thanksgiving, which I kind of like, 49ers on a Thanksgiving game. That doesn't happen. We'll beat Seattle. Then we got
Seattle.
that. Yeah, like Seattle's time is over. Like they had our number for a long time, but it's done.
I really like their drafts the last few years.
Yeah. Philly for week 13 in Philly, that's going to be rough. So that'll probably be our third loss. And then then we get Seattle again, which seems to be happening like every year. We either like get Seattle like almost back to back or like Arizona back to back. And then we'll be Arizona, and then like I said on Christmas, like in our chat where we play Baltimore, but Odell and Lamar are going to be hurt, so that'll be an easy win. And then the Commanders will win, and we'll beat the Rams at the end. So we'll be 14-3.
14-3. That would be a pretty good little record there at the end of the season. So what do you have them as the number 1 seed then, I assume?
Yeah, just because the Eagles, they have the toughest schedule this year, so I don't imagine they'll have they don't have as many wins as they did last year, and they'll be more banged up. So I think the 49ers can pull out the number 1 seed this year.
That would be pretty impressive. Okay, so I'll go quickly over my Raiders schedule and preface this with just saying I don't have high hopes. Obviously, I've talked about it ad nauseum pretty much about Jimmy G. I like him. I think he's a decent player, but injury history really scares me. And then there's a major drop off after him. So I feel like if we get 12 games out of Jimmy, that's probably a good season for him. But what happens in the other 5 games, I'm not super sold on what that would look like, especially if Brian Hoyer's the backup. I think at this point it would probably be Aiden O'Connell that's the backup, and Brian Hoyer's probably more of a player coach sort of deal, just to help everyone learn the offense and all that. But I really do feel like the talent on the team has gone down from last year. We opted for system fits rather than talent. So the system better be damn good if we're expecting to win more games than we did last year with less talent. I don't know. Raiders are tough to predict. I really don't feel like Josh McDaniels has done a ton to give us confidence that he is the coach of the future, the present. Just not a great season. I mean, 8-9, you could say we had some improvement. I guess even if we go 7-9 or 7-10, you could say we had some improvement from last year after we went 6-11. But this is the rebuild that they didn't want to announce we were starting last year. I really feel like they thought they could win last year. All right, well, we'll call it there. So thank you all that tuned in again. We would appreciate any comments, feedback. We are going to post the poll on Twitter, Instagram, all that. So if you guys like what you hear, give us a follow and give us that feedback, and we will catch you on the next episode.